That's spot on. So, since this is the last session that we're going to do for this weekend retreat, and at least, we want to do at least one meditation. Maybe we're going to have short segments of meditation just in order to introduce different parts of the meditation so that later on you can put them together in your free time and expand on that. So before we go into that, just to keep in mind the whole framework of the meditation, we've ruled out that an independently existing I exists outside in a way that is distinct, different, unrelated to the aggregates. So we're now, here I'm speaking about the body and mind, but in a more technical language, we speak of the 5 aggregates. So an I does not exist, an independent I does not exist as an entity that is distinct, other, different to the aggregates. What are the aggregates? They are the body and also the mental aggregates: feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness. Which means that in a more elaborate meditation, when we'll then start to investigate the remaining 4 aggregates, not only the body, but also the mind, we will look at whether is an independently existing I, is it a feeling? Is it pain, pleasure, or neutral sensation? Is an independently existing I can be found to be discrimination, saying this, it is this or it is not that? Is that an independently existing self? Is it just main mind, that entity that apprehends the object in general, the mere entity of the object, like for example, a mind apprehending Leonie and Wang Mo and Graham and Eva and so forth? Is it just that? Or is it that an independently existing I are the compositional factors, not all other mental factors that exist in the mind stream? So a more elaborate meditation will investigate each one of those options and find problems in asserting that, in accepting that an independently existing I, the one that appears to our mind, is feeling. It is sensation of pain, pleasure, and so forth. I think that this is fairly easy, right? We know that I'm not just pain. I'm not pain. I am not pleasure. I'm not neutral sensation. I mean, it would be awkward to actually think about ourselves as being, I am pain. I am suffering. I am happiness. I am pleasure. It's awkward to think about ourselves in this way, right? So in this way, we can examine in a more extensive way each one of the aggregates to inspect whether we can find I or me that is found within them. But the body is the first thing that we investigate, because the body is a cause phenomenon. It is something that we see directly. It's something that we sense. It's something that we touch. So it's easy to investigate the body. It's harder to investigate the mind because it's not something that is visible. It's not something that is physical. It is more subtle than the body, but we experience mind. So we can still work with it, right? There's still things that we can investigate because we have an experience of our own mind. So to begin with, we'll do just maybe a couple of short meditation exercises investigating the body. One of them would be just in a way that Shantideva refers to that in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. Take a scalpel with your mind, cut the body apart and try to see if there's any sense of self that you can find within the body. We'll do that. I will not try to lead this meditation, but I think that also we can probably all of us do this meditation by ourselves because it's quite straightforward, but we'll do it together nonetheless. Then we'll do maybe a short exercise of trying to sense the different elements within the body. And as I said, the body is made of the elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, and trying to see whether we can find any sense of self within earth, water, fire, and wind. So that's with respect to the body. And then see how much time we have to look at just whether the self can be found within the mind. All right. So in a normal meditation, it's good to study with it in a proper way. As I said before, I kind of do a 21 breathing meditation cycle. I go for refuge. I develop bodhicitta. let's assume that we do it in a formal meditation session. We've done it in the morning, so in order to save time, we're not going to do it here. We're just going to have a short, maybe 5 or 10 minutes meditation. So first of all, kind of just make sure that your body is relaxed and that you slowly calm your mind down. And first of all, again, being aware of the sphere of the body. And we'll do a round of 21 breaths just to make sure that the scattered mind is drawn inwardly. And at the beginning of this short meditation exercise, just again briefly give rise to that strong sense of self that we experience in some extreme situations when we find ourselves in a fearful event or something that excites our mind. So you can think of something that has happened to you in the past, or just imagine a fictitious event that gives rise to a strong sense of I. Like, for example, think of being chased by a lion. Or hearing the news that for the first time ever, you're going to become a parent. And try to give rise to that sense of self that normally appears to our mind. And when you hold that sense of self in your mind, try to assess its characteristics. Does it appear to you to be dependent or independent? Does it appear to depend upon causes and conditions? does it appear to depend upon parts? Is that sense of I that appears to your mind appearing to be independent, existing objectively in and of itself by its own power, from its own side, as if it's floating in mid-air? Does it appear in this way? And then thinking of that appearance of an independent sense of self, we want to check whether we can find it within the body. To me, it does appear as if there is a concrete, solid sense of self that exists independently, that is the very core of me, myself. This is my essence, me, an independently existing I. So can it be found within the body? Is it the body itself? Am I my body? Ask yourself this question. If I'm my body, can I ascribe qualities such as I'm smart, I'm angry, I'm compassionate? Can I ascribe it to myself if I'm just the body? If I'm my body, I will not be able to say that I'm angry, because the body does not get angry. I cannot say I'm smart, because the body is not smart, the mind is smart. And also, I will not be able to say my body. The only way that I would be able to talk about the body, to think of the body, is I am body. So I'm not my body as a whole. But what about finding I inside the body as one part of the body? So am I underneath the skin? So with your scalpel of consciousness, scrap the layer of skin and see if you can find an independently existing I, objective I, under the skin. In your muscle tissues, in your bloodstream. Am I my skeleton? Am I my heart? Am I my brain? Am I the collection of all of them? Am I the summation of all the organs in my body? Well, if I'm the summation of all the organs in my body, what if I chop all of them up and put them together in a big heap? Will you call that big heap of organs me? Is that what we identify with, that solid, concrete, independent sense of I, just a heap of bleeding organs? So what about I as being a support for the body? Is it that the body is resting upon I, on me, like a fruit that is resting in a bowl? Is it that the body is resting on I? Or am I being supported by the body? Am I the shape of the body? So when all the different parts of the body are put together and form a certain structure with a shape, am I just the shape of the body? So in this way, if we investigate the appearance of an independently existing I that appears to our mind, that exists in and of itself in a concrete and solid way, we can conclude that it is not the body as a whole. It is not the individual organs of the body. It is not the heart, the lungs, the liver, the brain, the spleen, the skeleton. It is not just the shape of the body. So in whichever direction we look, in and out of the body is not me. The body is not I. All right, let's conclude this short meditation exercise. So I did this meditation exercise in a brief way. I went through this meditation quite quickly, but you can spend a lot of time in analyzing the body. Also, the benefit of this meditation is also to also see that the body itself does not have essence. So we think of the body as also a concrete entity. And in our mind, when we think of body, again, it appears to a mind to exist as an independent, solid entity that is called body. When we start to do this meditation and break the body into parts, we can also see that the body itself does not have essence. There's nothing within the body that you can nominate or point at. There is an independently existing my body, right? So we have a certain body image, right? This is something that we struggle with, I think, throughout our life. Not necessarily struggle, but I think that in different periods of our life, it becomes an issue. Now, we don't like our appearance, particularly living at this point in time where it seems that in all directions we're being attracted or attacked by things that give rise to a sense of dissatisfaction that are gearing up is telling us that there's something that is not quite right that we need to address. And if we only buy that new product or try to send something, then we will be satisfied. And most of those things are addressing some things with our body, right? So to have a better diet, to be either thinner or leaner, to things about our skin complexion, our head, or what have you. So there is a certain, I think, process of dissatisfaction that happens to us throughout our life or different periods of our life. And when you then try to think of your body and what is it in your body image that you find it disturbing or dissatisfying, it's also a helpful meditation to actually see that the body is without essence. So we have this idea of beautiful body or attractive body or something that is desirable, a strong body. Can we find any of those things within that meditation that analyzes where is that beauty within the body? Where is the thing that is not satisfactory within the body? Can you pin it down in the process of analysis and point out to that particular thing and to designate an independently existing satisfying thing about the body or independently existing dissatisfying thing about the body? It's also useful, and it's also useful for dealing with a certain sense of attachment or attraction that we have to others, right? So, if sometimes when we find someone to be very attractive, it seems that also they exist like that, is attractive in and of themselves independently. So where is it, that attractiveness that exists in and of itself independently without my mind seeing it as attractive? And the same thing when someone appears to you in a disagreeable way, not necessarily kind of finding that person to be not attractive, but just in general, there's something about the person that you dislike. So where is that thing that you dislike? Can you find it, for example, within the body of that person in the process of analysis and investigation? So it also helps not only with respect to reducing our own sense of afflictions, anger, attachment, and so forth with respect to ourselves, but also in the way that we relate to others, reducing our afflictions that arise with respect to others. So that's one meditation. Any questions? So what I thought of doing now is also to look at a brief meditation that looks again at the body, but in terms of the elements. Because I thought that, since to some of us it is a foreign idea, but still kind of in a Buddhist tradition, it's really prevalent. And also I think that, in Asia, kind of looking at the body in terms of the element is also kind of very common. I thought it's also interesting to look at the body as something that is made of the elements. and also to try to see if there is any sense of identity, solid, permanent, unitary, independent, objective identity that we can find in the body just based on the elements. So let's try to do it also for a few minutes. So again, just for 1 minute, make sure that you find your body and mind to be in a suitable position, comfortable, relaxed. And then try to turn your attention to the earth element within the body. And the earth element is that which is hard and solid. So become mindful of the solidity within your body, hard tissues, or the contact between your body and the ground, the body and the floor, the meditation cushion, this hardness and solidity within the body. And then turn your attention to the water element, that which is wet and moist. So try to be aware of that aspect of moisture within your body, your mouth, cavity, different parts or organs in your body that has this aspect of wet and moist. That's the water element. Another thing that your body is made of. And then turn your attention to the fire element, the heat element within your body. So you can become aware of the heat in your body in general. And on top of that, do a quick scan of your body from top to bottom or bottom up. And pay attention to different areas in your body that might have different degrees of heat.
There where you want it to be.
And then turn your attention to the wind element. And try to pay attention to become mindful of, for example, the rising and falling of your chest and the abdomen in the process of breathing. The movement of air or wind coming into your lungs and going out. Different tingling sensations that occur within your body. That constant process of flow that occurs within the sphere of the body. That's the wind element, that which is light and moving. And then try to bring awareness to the body as a whole, that thing that contains the combination of the four elements. So try to be aware of the body as having solidity, moisture or wetness, heat and wind, all of them brought together in one mass. And ask yourself, is there any sense of I or me, an independently existing I, objective I, that can be found within any one of the elements? Solidity, moisture, heat, or movement. And the I, is the I any one of those elements? So I cannot find any I within the solidity part of the body. And also, I'm not found within any wet or moist part of the body. I'm not the heat of the body. And I'm not the movement, the slight aspect of movement in the body. I'm none of them. My body has them. But if I look within the four elements and try to find I, an independently existing I within the four elements, I cannot be found within them. And therefore, at the end of this short meditation exercise, again, think that to my mind appears an independently existing I, me, that exists as a concrete and solid entity. But if I investigate my body, I cannot find it within the body. All right. I think it's a good time to go on to looking at whether the body can be found within the mind. Sorry, the I can be found within the mind. Any questions, by the way?
When we did the first meditation, I'm experiencing the various parts of the body as matter that is vibrating somehow in alignment with what I think of as I.
Yeah.
And when we did the elements, I'm experiencing the I as somehow being all of that, not separated out, but all in one thing. And I'm just wondering if that's where I'm supposed to be landing.
Well, I think that probably, in the first part of meditation, where we looked at whether I can be found within the different parts of the body, so that kind of you felt the whole body vibrating with all, certain, I guess, sensation of feeling of the body, and you said that it felt that if this is the I or me, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, it felt as though the matter that is vibrating is somehow aligned with what I feel as I, or is coming along with it somehow, but isn't actually that, but it's associated with it in some way.
I think that many of us have, a similar sensation in that, we think of the body as I, we identify often with the body as I, so therefore when something is happening to the body, then we also think of, for example, I. Like, for example, if you sustain an injury, if you hit your toe against a corner, it's painful and you think that I'm in pain. So it's happening to the body, but we still think that I'm in pain. And that's a valid way it's okay to think about it like that, you know. So there's something happening to the body. There's a certain vibration in the body, and we think about it as a vibration that I experience. So that's okay. But then when we think of whether a solid sense of I can be found within the different parts of the body, that we see that that cannot be found. So on a conventional level, yeah, we do identify with the body, and this is my body. And it's okay in our language to say that I'm in pain, I'm sick, I'm not well, and so forth. And we refer normally to the body, right? Because the body is unwell, because the body is sick, then I'm sick. But it's because I have a body. But then when we look for inside the body and try to find the I inside the body, this is where we run into problems because it cannot be found within that. So I think that to answer your question, it's okay to feel that there is a certain vibration or thing that is associated with the I when you meditate on the body. But the idea is that then to take the next step and to see that when you look closely at the body, this I cannot be found. No, so you sense it, but in a close look, it cannot be found. So then so when we go then to the more, I think, difficult part of this meditation, when we meditate on the mind, and this is maybe a continuation of the short discussion that we have before the session, it's becoming it's becoming more difficult because, as I said, the mind is not matter. It's hard to see it in a kind of direct way, in a way that we see a body or feel the body or know the makeup of the body. We are less familiar with what mind is. Although we have mind, we do experience mind, we are not too clear about what it is in general, and therefore it makes it harder to then try to see whether I is my mind. Am I my mind? So we had a discussion earlier on today and also before, when we entertaining that notion of I or me being the mind, and studying then to look at different parts of the mind in the same way that we investigate the makeup of the body. The body is made of different parts. Also, the mind is made of different parts. So first of all, as we said before, there are sense consciousnesses, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, physical consciousness. It's clear that we are not those sense consciousnesses. The doubt is whether we are mental consciousnesses. We said before, when we think of what goes from this lifetime to the next, it is the mental consciousness. So maybe I am the mental consciousness, but then there are different parts to mental consciousness. First of all, minds and mental factors that we've mentioned before. There's the mind that engages the main entity, the general entity of an object. And then there are mental factors that are responsible for different functions or attributes, right? So I have, for example, a main mind that thinks of Eva, just a general entity, Eva. Then I have the different mental factors, feelings, of pleasure or pain or neutral sensation. This is also this experience of feeling of pain or pleasure. When I think of Eva, that's also a consciousness, that's feeling. Then we have discrimination that discriminates between different attributes. It is this and it is not that. Then we have attention that direct the minds towards that object. And we have, that's intention. And we have attention that pays attention more closely to different attributes, more specific attributes, the different mental factors. So am I main mind, just the mind that apprehends the general entity, or am I a specific mental factor? I mean, I think that when we start to look into that, it's quite obvious that we are not specific mental factors. No, I'm not feeling, I'm not discrimination, I'm not wisdom, I'm not concentration, I'm not a wrong view, I'm not wrath, I'm not non-attachment. Now, when we look at a list of 51 mental factors, we can see very clearly how we're not each and every one of them. But what about being just an entity that apprehends in general the object? Are we that? Well, again, we'll find faults in saying that we're just an entity that apprehends the general entity of an object, because then we would have no ability whatsoever as persons to engage the different attributes. If I'm just apprehending the general entity of Leonie, for example, without having an intention, without attention, without sensation, without wisdom, without mindfulness, without concentration and other mental factors, how will I be able to apprehend anything if there's no function of consciousness? So I cannot be just main mind, because it would be insufficient. What about being a combination of all of them? Right? What if I'm just a mind that has the combination of all these mental factors coming in one package? It makes sense, right? If we think of ourselves as being, rather than trying to pull out just main mind or one mental factor or the rest, what if we bundle all of them together and we say that I'm just a collection of all of them? That could be a good option, right? So what about falling unconscious? If we fall unconscious, in which most of those mental factors are not operative, where does the I go? If the parts are not there, what happens to the I? Is the I kind of suspended for some time? And there's no, well, if there's no I for a certain duration, it means that there's a continuity of I that is being cut. And therefore, what will happen to all the karmic imprints that have happened, that were there before? But what about, for example, if we say that the I is a collection of different parts, different mental consciousnesses, different mental factors, and the main mind? If it's a combination of all of them, a collection of all of them, when we think of I, kind of the appearance of I that dawns to our mind, there is that strong, solid, concrete, independent sense of I that seems to be unchanging. Well, mental factors to begin with are sometimes, some of them are sometimes there, sometimes not there. Within the group of mental factors that are mental processes, mental events, we have anger and attachment, pride, doubt, and so forth. They're sometimes there, but are sometimes they're not there. If I'm the collection of different parts, when I take some of those parts away, when I take them out, when I'm not there, when I'm not angry, when I'm not attached, where is that sense of I go to? Or, if you say that I is mind, and mind can have a combination, or minds and mental factors, if it's the group of all of them, then in the group, I have positive states of mind and negative states of mind. Can they coexist at the same time? Like, for example, can I have anger and love to the same person simultaneously at the same time, if I'm the collection of all the different parts of consciousness? It makes it hard to kind of really come down on one specific collection of consciousnesses, minds and mental factors, that will be that solid sense of I that has always been there, that will always be there, that is the essence of me, that collection, that will always be the same. Because it's changing all the time. My mind is changing all the time. It is a constant sense of flux. Anger is sometimes there. Compassion is sometimes there. Positive intention is sometimes there. Negative intention is sometimes present. So if we say that my mind is that concrete core of ourself that is always me, that is never changing, I've always been like that, I will always be like that. How can it exist? So it's hard to kind of really come down on a well-defined collection of consciousnesses that is me, that you can point your finger at, and that you can point your finger at and say that if you're looking for the I within the consciousness, this is what it is. It is a combination of this consciousness this main mind with these mental factors. There's no well-defined set of minds and mental factors that you can come up with and say that this is the independently existent self that you can point it at any given time. But also, when we think about our process of mental transformation, so our goal is to attain the state of liberation, right? This is what we're keen on. I am going to break out of the prison of anger and attachment and ignorance, which means I'm going to completely purge them, eliminate them from my mind, and develop positive qualities, infinite wisdom, right? And love and compassion, ethics, and so forth. So if I say that I am my mind, I am the collection of minds and mental factors. Currently, I have those afflictive states of mind present in my mind stream. I have ignorance, I have anger, I have attachment, and so forth. So if I am a mind and I am anger, attachment, and ignorance, and so forth, if I eliminate them, do I eliminate myself? I mean, am I kind of taking out part of myself from that collection of I? And then I develop it to be, someone that is wise, so have infinite love and compassion and so forth. So where is the concrete sense of I go to? I have no longer, when I'm liberated or when I'm enlightened, I no longer have wrong views. I no longer have ignorance, anger, and so forth. So it seems that there is a completely different person that is there when I'm enlightened to the person that is here now. So I'm still looking for a concrete sense of self that is in the core of myself. This is my essence, that is unchanging, that is independent. But it's hard to find it within that distinction between where I am now and where I will be when I'm liberated or enlightened. That concrete sense of self is just not there anymore.
I've had this conversation with my mother. And I said, I'm not the angry person I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And she'll say, oh yes, but you're still the same daughter that I've always had.
Yeah.
So I'm saying I'm not the same person. She's saying, are we the same person or not?
Well,
the person is different, but the I is the same.
Well, the merely imputed I is the same in that it is imputed and depends upon a continuum. So you can say that it's the same in belonging to that continuum, but is it the same in a sense of not changing, of something that was there at the very beginning and till the kind of in a continuous way? There is no end to the sense of to I or me. But is there something that is not changing, always staying the same in I or me? It is also something that is a dependent arising. So in that sense, you've always been the daughter of your mother, and that's correct. It's like you can say that that's true, but there's still a room for a process of change because you're imputed and depends upon a body that came for you from your mother. So the body is going through a change, and therefore I that is imputed and depends upon the body is also going through a process of change. But you also imputed upon your mind, and your mind did not come from your mother. No, your mind came from the person that you were in your previous lifetime. So it is true that you always be the daughter of your mother, and this is unchanging in this life. But when the situation changes, when you pass away, when your mother passes away, the situation changes, or it ceases to exist, and then there's something else. Does it make sense? I'm not sure that it makes sense.
Well, everyone has been my mother
Yeah.
at some point. At this point, it's her. Yet it's unchanging for a certain number of years.
Yeah.
But at some point that will change.
Yeah, it is unchanging for a certain number of years. Yeah, I think that this is a point that we made yesterday with respect to things that are permanent. So there are things that are permanent and are eternal, that forever, they exist forever, so to speak. And there are things that are permanent, but for a certain duration. And it's not that they change from being permanent to then being impermanent. It's more like They existed for a certain duration, and then they go out of existence. So I am the child of my parent. I exist as a child of my parent. Now, my parents are no longer there, but I'm still the child of my parent. At some point I will die and it will no longer be in existence in this body. So you can say that also that child of my parent has gone out of existence. So long as I'm alive, being a child of my parent does not change. It's not something that changes from moment to moment. As long as I'm alive, it is permanent. When I'm no longer alive, this child has ceased to exist. I'm no longer alive. The child is no longer there, right? So it's not that it has changed because of cause and conditions. It just ceased to exist.
In a physical way.
Yeah, in a physical way.
Yeah. But in some kind of continuum, it's always there, like
Well, there is a
everything is somehow.
well, there is a continuum of I or me that goes from this lifetime to the next. You know, so when I say, no, so let's say that I die, I will die. It's not that just it's not I'm saying that in a hypothetical way, I will die. I will die. So me, no, I was given the name Jacob or Jacob by my parents. So Jacob will cease to exist, but there is still an I or me that will go from this lifetime to the next. It's not I or me that is Jacob, it's just I, just me. We'll go from this lifetime to the next. That will still exist. But in next lifetime, let's say that I'm born as a cute puppy, Jimmy. You know, so Jimmy will not be Yaki. Now that Yaki has passed away, Jacob has passed away. So Jacob is no longer in existence. What exists now is the puppy Jimmy. Did I call it Jimmy? The puppy Jimmy. And also just a mere I that is Jimmy. Just a mere self that is Jimmy. That will pass away also. And there will be another person after that. So there is that continuity of I or me, I or me, a being, a self that has different manifestations. The manifestations are temporary in that they exist for a certain duration and then they go out of existence. But all along, there is a continuity of mere I, mere me. What does it mean to say mere I? That's quite heavy, isn't it? The word mere, which we use in that philosophy a lot, means that it is a word that negates something. What it negates is objective existence. It negates independent existence. So it's another way of saying that what remains is just a dependent I. Dependently arisen I. The mere I is dependently arisen I that does not exist from its own side, does not exist objectively. It's hard to think about it, to understand it with respect to ourselves, because when we think of what goes from this lifetime to the next is mere I, we're still so used to thinking of ourselves as embodying this thing, right? So we identify with the body, and we also identify with the mind. We identify with our name. We have a certain sense of identity. So it makes it hard to think of what is that dependently imputed I that goes from this lifetime to the next, that is not the body and is not the mind. It is only imputed and depends upon the mind. That's hard. That requires a lot of thinking and also trying to get a sense of that based upon a meditation on emptiness. This is hard, but we will come to understand it later on. It depends upon a meditation. So it's not, in that sense, if I speak about it, it's not something that you can get just intellectually, academically, and think to yourself, this is exactly what it is. I've nailed it down. This is the merely imputed I. It's more like, I think that it's something that you hear about, you develop a certain understanding, you take it on to your meditation on emptiness. You arise from your meditation on emptiness in which you think that I haven't found any independently, inherently existing I, but I still exist. I exist but I exist as mere I, in that not as independently existing I. I exist as being merely imputed. It depends upon my body and mind.
Excuse me. So if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, that means I can also be independent of the body and the mind. I can be independent.
You can be independent of the body, and there will always be mind.
Meditation, you can reach the conclusion that I'm not the mind also.
I'm not the mind, but I depend upon them. I exist in dependence upon them, but I'm not them. It's like, for example, it's not exactly the same, but if I give you an analogy, you can say that if I'm, for example, when I become old, I can rely upon a walking stick, to walk somewhere, so I can only walk depending upon crouches or a stick, but I'm not the crouch or I'm not the stick. No, I depend upon them, but I'm not them. So similarly, you can say that the I depends upon the body. It depends upon the mind, but it is not the body and mind.
So are there any qualities that are the I that are not any of those things that are continuing that you can access?
Well, are there any qualities to it? Well, it acquires qualities of the body and mind. It acquires qualities in the sense that the qualities of the body and mind can be attributed to the I. But since they can be attributed to the I, it gives us that idea that there's nothing that is fixed, permanent, unchanging, solid, objectively existing within them, because the body is constantly changing. And not only that, currently the body that we have is a body that we have acquired in a samsaric process under the influence of karma and afflictions. So once we cut through karma and afflictions, we eliminate them, we can get to a state in which we are no longer forced to have a body. So we can exist without a body. We can exist as beings, as persons, as selves, independent upon mind. There will still be a continuity of consciousness, but without such a cause, what we call cause-contaminated body. So we can have characteristics of body because the self depends upon the body, but we can also have characteristic of the self because the self depends upon mind. So for example, when we think of Buddha, often we think of Buddha just as person, right? So we think of Buddha Shakyamuni, was born 2,600 years ago in India. So we can think of someone that has this Indian appearance. We see images of Buddha, statues of Buddha, movies, clips, and so forth of Buddha. So we build a certain idea of what Buddha is. But when we look at Buddha in a more extensive way, the word for Buddha in Tibetan is Sangye. The first syllable, Sang, refers to the elimination of all faults. All faults, all negative traits have completely been eliminated. And the second syllable is Ge, which refers to the complete expansion in all positive qualities. So rather than thinking of Buddha just as this Indian guy, just as person, we can think about it as elimination of all faults and the development of all positive qualities. So for example, what about mind, for example? Mind in which all negative qualities, all negative faults have been eliminated and all positive things have been developed to its utmost extent, right? So infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite compassion, infinite ability, in that there is a knowledge of each and every living being and the disposition of living beings, knowing what kind of teachings, what kind of advice they need in order to develop their mind. So that is Buddha also. So consciousness can become Buddha in itself. So then why am I saying that? Because once you can say that if we think of that imputed I and whether there are any characteristics to that, well, you can say that a Buddha is a being that is imputed in dependence upon a consciousness that has infinite qualities, positive qualities, and no faults whatsoever. And because of that, that mere I that is Buddha has infinite qualities and no faults whatsoever.
I sometimes try to think this way. To think, for example, when I have anger or have some kind of emotion, I would think, oh, this emotion arises from this mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know whether to try to make this I less solid.
Mm.
I don't know whether it is the right direction or it's just wrong. I mean, this interpretation of the I, the relationship between the I and the five aggregates is correct.
It is correct. I would go even more than that. I would say that when you start to think about emptiness in the way that we've spoken about it up until now, then you can start to see that, first of all, there is no essence in yourself, that concrete sense of I that you can find in yourself. And likewise, there's no concrete sense of self that you find in others. So daily we come across different situations when people rub us the wrong way, or when we get attached to a particular thing, when we think that if only I got that particular thing, or if only I have met that person, if only I've stayed with that person will make me happy, or I don't want to see that person ever again. No, they make me unhappy. So we ascribe those qualities to that person, not to the mind that reacts to a certain situation, but to that person themselves. So the benefit of meditating on emptiness, one of the benefits of meditating on emptiness, is not only to diffuse that sense of the concrete sense of self that we have with respect to ourselves, but also with respect to others. So we have the people that we don't like, people that we like, people that are close to our heart, people that we definitely don't want to see ever again in this life. So we tend to ascribe those permanent, independent, solid, objective qualities that exist in the object itself, as if it's not related to how a mind sees them in that way. One really helpful thing that Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned in his Lamrim Chenmo, the great exposition and steps of the path of enlightenment, is having to train yourself also in reminding yourself that things exist like illusions. It's not that they don't exist at all. What he meant to say is that things appear to us in a certain way, but they don't exist in that way. So then, in relation to your question directly, we have different emotions that arise in our mind, and we react to them. But we react to them always on the basis of totally assenting to those appearances. We trust that things exist in the way that they appear to us. We solidify them, we concrete them, we objectify different things that we come across with. We react to them with emotions, with the assumptions that they do exist in the way that they appear. So this constant habituation throughout the day, with reminding ourselves that they appear in this way, but they don't exist in that way, it does help to bring the emotions a little bit down. But it's a really long process. It's not going to happen, I think, overnight in one instance, because when you get angry with another person throughout the day, and anger is already there, I find that if you tell yourself that they do not exist in the way that they appear, it might have an ability to influence anger a little bit, but it is likely that when anger is already there, it'd be hard to diffuse it. So the way to work with it is to try to, first of all, on an ongoing basis, to remind yourself that things do not exist in the way that they appear. They're empty in that they do not exist in the way that they appear. So get more acquainted with that regularly. Remind yourself again of that again and again. And then one of the things that Shantideva says in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, he says that if you want to put a stop to anger, for example, that's one of our disturbing emotions. If you want to put a stop to anger, you need to put a stop to the fuel of anger, to the cause of anger. Now, what is the cause of anger? It is mental unhappiness. So if your mind is made unhappy which means that you're unhappy, you're upset, there's something disturbing, something that is not comfortable, something that causes you displeasure, there's a danger that the next moment anger will arise. So let's deal with that mental discomfort, unhappiness, something that doesn't agree with us. No, in English, sometimes it seems that all of them come together to calling that anger, but actually that mental discomfort or pain is the cause of anger. Anger would be the next moment of having that strong intention to harm someone. So then Shantideva says, look at that and deal with that. So then when we look at that mental discomfort that arises in different points during the day, then we can remind ourselves that that mental discomfort arises because we know, amongst other things, we assume that things exist in the way that they appear to us. They appear to us to have that solid and concrete, solid essence, as if from the outside, they cause us harm. It's not about the way that we react to them. It's about the way that they react to us. So if we then if we remind ourselves that things do not exist in the way that they appear, they're merely imputed by mind. It doesn't mean that they do not exist at all. It just means that they are not solid, concrete, independent entities. They are related to the way that we see them. It has an ability to diffuse some of those emotions in relation also to the way that we see our body.
So could you say our I is reacting to their I?
Yeah, I is reacting to their I, but no, my conventionally existing I, which is just a mere I, is reacting to their mere I, which means that, it sounds quite clunky and a bit a bit aloof, but you can say that my I that does not exist inherently reacts to their I that does not exist inherently. So we react to each other on a conventional level. We function as dependent entities. We depend upon cause and conditions. We depend upon different parts. We depend upon consciousness that imputes things in the way that they are, and we function in a world that is based on those dependencies, in which everything exists as being dependent upon others, like in that documentary, Infinite Potential. But we do not function in a world that has independent entities. Nothing exists independently in and of itself. Yeah.
No inherent existence. We just, what we all thought on Friday night was going to happen on the weekend.
Yeah.
That we thought was a definite timetable, because this is what always happens on DB weekends. We have exactly the same timetable all the time. Literally none of it.
Yeah, and also
this weekend, so.
including our teacher. Like everything this whole weekend is completely different than every other DB weekend.
well, and also every session, or every day I had this when Shohil asked me to step in and help. I had this thought or plans of what will I do today, or what will I speak about today, and then everything happened differently.
But,
Yeah,
that was
Sarah.
me. Hello. I'm just gonna try to put the video. Yes, I just wrote something that I just would like you correct me in the language. Or can I say that because the imputed I is constantly changing, I kind of find it?
You can say that I am imputed on a certain basis. I'm imputed. So I'm imputed on a certain basis, and the basis, by the way, can be changing. And maybe you can also say that there are also permanent bases that could be basis of imputation. So, for example, I am imputed upon my body. The body is changing from moment to moment. My mind is changing from moment to moment, and therefore you couldn't find a permanent, solid I that is found within something that is changing from moment to moment. So you can say that. So that's,
Yeah,
I think, one part of your question. But we also have permanent phenomena, things that are not changing from moment to moment. And they also exist as being merely imputed, in that if you look for them, you're not going to be able to find them. But also there are things in me that are not changing. Like, for example, each and every one of us have emptiness, right? Emptiness on the basis of I, the emptiness of the body, the emptiness of the mind, the emptiness of me. This emptiness doesn't change from moment to moment. Like, for example, me being person doesn't change from moment to moment. That's permanent. It is always attributed to me, and it is unchanging. You can say that that's also a basis of imputation, but it is unchanging. But still, I cannot find it if I look for it. I cannot find me within that if I look for it. It's pretty vague, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a person.
I am changing as person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I am changing as person.
So that is
Yeah,
also
so for
permanent.
example, just to illustrate that, am I Katsun? Am I Yaki? What do you say? Yes. So as a person, as Yaki, do I change from moment to moment? Yes.
Yes.
What about being Yaki? Me being Yaki, me being Katsun, does it change from moment to moment? Yeah, it doesn't change from moment to moment, but it will end at some point. So being something, like, for example, me being man, me being monk, doesn't change from moment to moment. It is permanent so long as this situation exists. So long as I'm alive in this body, I'm Katsun. So long as I'm a monk, and hopefully I will remain a monk for the rest of my life, for that long, being a monk doesn't change from moment to moment. But at some point it will go out of existence. So I'm impermanent. But being something does not necessarily change from moment to moment.
So does it mean that emptiness?
If you dress differently, you will not be a monk in people's eyes. If you take the blue jeans or dress differently, or
Yeah, when I go to Tibet, for example, or to China, I wear lay clothes, but I'm still a monk. So if I have a vow of a monk, I'm a monk. It might be that temporarily I have to kind of change my dress, but I'm still a monk.
Yeah, but and I don't say that would be dubious, but if you want not to become a monk,
Yeah. As I said, if not for as long as I'm a monk, being a monk doesn't change. If I'm no longer a monk, then I'm something else. I'm a layperson, and so long as I'm a layperson, being a layperson doesn't change. In a sense that it doesn't change from moment to moment. Unchanging is permanent. But there's a difference between being permanent and eternal, or permanent for a certain duration, for a certain point in time. So for long as I'm a monk, being a monk doesn't change. For as long as being a layperson doesn't change. But monk and layperson do change. They change from moment to moment. But being it doesn't change from moment to moment.
So I mean that emptiness applies to permanent phenomena that don't change from moment to moment, and impermanent phenomena.
Yeah, everything that exists, permanent and impermanent, is empty.
It's empty.
Yeah, that's correct. Even empty. Yeah, even emptiness.
I was gonna say emptiness. Is emptiness empty?
Yeah.
All right.
Emptiness does not exist inherently, because it does depend upon other things. It depends upon, for example, parts. Emptiness does have parts, although it is permanent. It does have parts. Now, parts here doesn't refer to physical parts. You can also speak about parts that are abstract. Like, for example, when you think of my emptiness, the emptiness of Katsun, you can say that there's one abstract part of it, one aspect of it, that is my emptiness. This is my emptiness. It's not one more's emptiness. Another part of it is that this is my emptiness. It's not Leonie's emptiness. In that sense, there are those parts that are divisible by mind, or that they are isolated by mind. Since my mind can isolate certain aspects of emptiness, it does have parts. It is not like one concrete, solid entity. But anyway, it seems that we are out of time. And I'm sorry for leaving you with that cliffhanger.
Yes. I'm glad you opened those doors of that hall that in the monastery.
Thank you. So let's dedicate all the virtue that we've created together. Thank you, first of all, for joining in online, for coming here today. I think that we can dedicate it, first of all, for our realization of emptiness, so that we'll be able to eliminate our own ignorance and thereby be liberated from samsara, but also to use that so that we'll be able to become Buddhas, to be able to be of benefit to everyone else. Also, we can dedicate it for, since most of you have been together with Turkey for, how many years have you been studying with her now? 2.5 years. Then we can also dedicate all the virtue that we've created for the health of Turkey. And we can say together some dedication prayers which are found in page 320, 21 and 22. For those of you at home, I believe that you don't have this book, so you can just listen to our dedication and dedicate it in your heart.
Some people might have the e-copy and not read it.
All right, so if you have the e-copies, then it's in page 320. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes spontaneously fulfilled. Then over the page, the long life for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. You uphold your subduous moral way, who says as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Vajranath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent praise, honoring the three sublime ones, several of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. All right. Thank you very much. Apologies for mistakes or inaccuracies that I had along the way. And
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of everyone. What was good, you gave us not just some guided meditations, but how to do the meditations in our own time. That was very instructive too.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you also very
Thank you.
much for doing the discussion group and Venerable Gompo a piece
Gompo.
on there. And Leonie Lau for looking after.
Yeah.
And voices.
And doing gardening, by the way. The queen, yeah. The garden queen.
Thank you for the snake also being outside there.
I just don't garden.
All mother living snakes.
Yeah, leave the snake alone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
All right. Thank you very much. I'll stop the recordings.
yes, record and then we'll end it. And thank you everyone at home. Bye. And then that.